Am I allowed to ask you about punching up Judd Apatow project?
Sure. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. He's got a new film idea. It's not going to be shot for like 9 months. So Judd is the most fastidious writer director out there. He just like, he pulled together a room full of writers that he's worked with in the past. And we all got the script a few days ahead of time, and then we just basically give him suggestions, punch up some jokes. It's like the most fun writing job that there is. And I wrote on Crashing for a few seasons, so I got to know him pretty well. And we actually take these monster walks together. Like every couple weeks, we'll walk from Brentwood all the way to the beach and back again. It's like a 2 hour walk, and we just really got to know each other over the years. He's a good dude.
Well, there's a couple of interesting routes to go there. Speaking of walks, one is Judd's background before he ever became this renowned writer and director was in stand-up comedy. Did you guys come up in stand-up at all? And what sort of stand-up is Judd? Because I've never seen any of his work before.
Um, I mean, I didn't know his stand up when he first started because that was a long time ago. And then he took a break, but he was roommates with Adam Sandler. They started out in New York together.
Huh.
And then he started getting back into it, I guess, around the same time as Crashing, maybe a little bit before. And he would come to the Comedy Store mostly and talk about his family. It was kind of like anecdotes from his life, some comments on life in general, but very personal, extremely personal. And he would do very well. I mean, he just was able to connect to the crowd. And then I know he put out a special, and now he mostly just does Largo. There's a theater in LA that's very, how would you describe it? It's almost very NPR. If NPR had a comedy club, it would be Largo. It's hip. It's got hipsters mixed with people that read books. Go there.
Hopefully they're not reading while the comedy is going on, though.
No, they're reading the comedians. They're trying to figure us out. And I think they figure me out pretty quick when I'm there. And they go, this guy's kind of a road hack.
Oh yeah, well, they're dead wrong about that one. That's that's a bad NPR take right there.
Yeah, maybe they're off. Maybe they need to listen to some classic rock once in a while.
Classic rock, or like some sort of Sudanese rock that was actually recorded in Ukraine or something.
Yes, and there's a Cuban bongo player, and there's a Persian guy who does AI on the backbeat.
Yeah, exactly. So you wrote for Crashing. I didn't realize that. I spoke with Pete Holmes a few months back before his show at Moon Tower. What a funny dude, by the way. I went and saw his stand-up a few months back as well. What was it like writing for that show?
It was good because we had a room full of writers, and we would write starting in the late fall, and we'd write for about 6 months, and we'd break the scripts. Breaking a script basically means everybody's just pitching stories, and there was a few comedians in the room, so obviously we were drawing on our funny stories from our careers, and then whichever stories sort of like resonated the most, Pete would be in the room, Judd would be in the room about half the time, and he would usually come in once we built up some stuff. Then Judd would come in and we'd flesh it out, and then you have a board. And you have index cards, and each one that goes up is a beat. It might not necessarily be a whole episode, but it's a beat of something, a scene. And those would go up, and then those would sort of start getting shaped into episodes. And then eventually somebody would go off. If it was your idea originally, like if it's a story based on my life, then I'm the genesis of it, then I would get sent off to write the script. And Pete was always the co-writer of every script. And you would go off and you would do what they call a first draft. And then that would come back into the room, and that would get reworked and punched up. And then I would go with one other writer every summer. There was usually like 10, 12 writers in LA. And then just two of us would go to New York for 3 months and be on set to do punch ups, last minute rewrites, sometimes more. Sometimes like the script wasn't written yet. And we would have to be writing a full script while we were on. It was long days. They were like 12, 14-hour days. Yeah. It was pretty crazy. And it's a single camera show, which means you're not working out of a studio. You're like, at 4:00 in the morning, you have to be at Rockaway Beach. And to get to Rockaway Beach, I was living in Brooklyn. I would have to get myself into Manhattan to meet the crew bus, which would take me out to Rockaway Beach. So the opposite direction. And then you'd move from Rockaway Beach to LaGuardia Airport later in the day and be there till midnight. And all the while, I'm looking at the script for the next day. So I'm on set punching up, and I'm looking at the script for the next day and writing jokes, what they call alts, alternate jokes. For each joke in the script, they want 3 other jokes. So me and the other writer would do all of that in between takes or after we got back from shooting, and we'd hand those in. But then there was also days that were like, when you have stuff that doesn't need punch up, when you have sort of like, scenes that are just story, just we need to get external shots, B-roll, things that don't involve jokes. Then we would just we had a credit card, and HBO shows are very generous. You see the difference when you watch an HBO show. It's shot rich, it's beautiful. And so me and the other writer and the writer's assistant, this guy Yoni, we had a fucking platinum card, man. And we would go get lobsters, we would get cappuccinos, we would just kill hours. And so I worked with Beth Stelling one summer, and I got to know her really well.
Oh, Beth is great. I spoke with her, I want to say about a year ago, and she was coming through Creek in the Cave. That's cool.
Yeah. So it was a great experience.
So I feel like the first time you and I talked, I asked you if you had any plans to write a second book, because your first book, which I believe came out more than 10 years ago, was really entertaining. And you're like, absolutely not. I hated feeling the pressure of having to turn stuff into a publisher. But that speed is a little bit more enjoyable for you, I guess, being under the gun of getting that next script out, or punching up a script, or coming up with additional jokes to go along with whatever that initial premise is.
Yeah, I think, look, I have severe ADHD, and I've sort of come to terms with it more and more as I get older. And I realize if I have a gun to my head, and I've really always worked good. I've worked on different daily shows. I worked on Bill Maher's first show, which was 5 nights a week. And I wrote on Ellen for a couple of years. And I love showing up to work at 9 a.m. with the board is blank. We have nothing. And then we're shooting at 5 o'clock, and you got to write, you got to crank. And that's the best use of my brain. But when I'm left with a vacuum of time and no end date and no deadlines, I really masturbate a lot.
So you like the collaborative process versus being stuck in your own head forever.
Well, you mean masturbating with other people? Yeah, absolutely. Let's all get involved here. I mean, why does it have to be a one-man game?
It's best when there's other hands and elbow creases and arm.
Yeah. Right. Or even just one guy giving me eye contact,
So I heard you say recently, I think it was on the Fitz Dog radio show, that your son is about to or just moved to New York City. Considering the amount of time you've spent there, did you give him any advice on what it's going to take for him to make it in NYC?
I'm glad you say that, because that's something that I've been looking forward to doing, is giving him a survival kit. I'm going to get him a city bike pass where you can, rent the bikes. I'm going to get him a subway card. I've got a map of New York City for him. I've got a list of restaurants that are cheap and good. I've already given him contacts for everybody that I know in the city. So he's already got job interviews set up when he gets there. My wife's stepmom has an apartment she's not using this summer. So he's got 2 months in an apartment up in Harlem that's all set while he tries to find his own place. So, we're not going with him. He's gonna fly in on his own. I'll be in New York 2 weeks later, so I'll come in for 3 or 4 days and take him to Keen's Chop House, my favorite restaurant in New York. And he's spent a lot of time in New York in his life. So he grew up going there every Christmas, every summer, and he's always been in love with the city. He's ever since he was 14, 15 years old, he would take the subway all over the city by himself. He always had friends there, and so I think he's going to be in good shape.
Is this the kid? Because I remember you talking about one of your kids spending time in South America. Is this the kid who spent time in South America too?
Well, Central America. Yeah.
Central America, excuse me.
Yeah, he spent 6 months in Guatemala and Mexico. Him and a buddy just backpacked around, took buses from town to town. And then we ended up, I don't know if you can see my t-shirt, but the final week of his trip was down in Mazatlan, Mexico, where do you remember that eclipse that was about, is that a year ago or is that 2 years ago?
Oh, no, it was a little bit more than a year ago because we were very underwhelmed here. We were in the path of totality in Central Texas, Greg. Yeah. But it was totally overcast when the eclipse was happening. So it was a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah, well, we got a whole lot of everything. We got down there and, the forecast was gray for like 3 days. And meanwhile, he was wrapping up a 6-month trip. We coordinated the timing to end up. We had 3 Airbnbs. We had about 22 people. We drove to Tijuana to take a flight directly into Mazatlan, and we get there and it's going to be fucking great. And then I'm telling you, man, it's such a cliche, but it was like out of the blue. The skies just parted like 20 minutes before the eclipse, and we stood there, and it was like a mushroom trip. It was like a completely altered reality. It was just like, the sun was just slightly covered. And as it started to be covered, you noticed a shift in everybody's mood. People got kind of elated. They got emotional. People were dancing. As it got to a full eclipse, people were crying. Like his friend, this girl was just crying. And then we put on Dark Side of the Moon and laid on our backs, and we're just like holding hands like a lineup. I mean, it all sounds really corny, but it was, if you ever get a chance to really get to one, it's worth it.
So I've been in partial eclipses before. The full eclipse sadly, it was nothing for me. I even drove to Kerrville to hang out with my 94-year-old granddad to have this special moment with him. And then it was like, oh, I guess this kind of sucks. Hey, at least we still have one another though. But even partial eclipses, because it gets darker, but it's not like it's getting dark necessarily. It's like the entire color tone shifts in the world around you. And there's like a coolness that sets in. It's like borderline out of body experience. Like I met Bill Murray 3 or 4 months ago at some meet and greet before the what is essentially a karaoke show that he's doing across America right now. That was a little bit out of body. It felt like meeting Bill Murray with the temperatures being jacked down about 15 degrees.
Oh my God, that's crazy. Yeah, what's really wild is that the horizon, 360 degrees, there's a sunset happening, like a thin glow above the horizon in every direction. And we're on the ocean, and the birds are swarming in a really weird way. Everything got really calm, and everybody was really cool. Like we only put on the music as the eclipse was starting to withdraw, as the sun was coming out the other side. But like everybody was quiet, and then a bunch of Mexicans started singing like an old folk song. It was really cool.
Yeah, I feel like that would have been a good place for like one of the old school Irish songs that breaks out at bars from time to time also.
Yeah.
But you were in Mexico, so that was less likely that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, that wasn't necessarily an epiphanous moment for you, but people experience epiphanous moments in their lives. I've gone through a couple in my lives. Have you ever experienced an epiphany, something that maybe had an impact on the direction that your life was headed, Greg?
Wow, interesting question. Yeah, I guess, you know, when I was in high school, there was a talent show, and me and my buddy Frank Moretti used to drive. We grew up like 20 minutes outside New York City, and we would drive into the city every weekend, and we would go to the comedy clubs, and we'd see, Jerry Seinfeld and Paul Reiser and Richard Belzer and Judy Gold and all these amazing comics. And we were obsessed, and I collected comedy albums. And my father was in radio, but he used to host these benefit shows and put on a tuxedo and kind of tell jokes. And so like, it was very much a part of my world. And then senior year of high school, there was a talent show, and me and Frank decided to sign up. And they were about to introduce Frank, and then he just bailed. He goes, "I can't do it. I'm not doing it." And they introduced me, and I fucking did it. And we had been snorting lines of coke off the slide at the middle school, and I was pretty wired. And I got on stage, and I started doing. I did an old Bob Newhart routine, and then I did a Cosby routine.
Oh.
And then I did a bunch of stuff I'd written that was like kind of shitting on the teachers. I was like roasting the teachers. And so they unplugged my microphone because I was talking about Mr. Koskoris was having an affair with Mrs. Hunt, who was the art teacher. And I was making fun of them. I was like, oh, what a coincidence. They both always chaperone the field trips. And then they unplugged my mic. And so I yelled out the rest of my act with no microphone. And then I got off stage, and I opened up backstage the door to outside, and I went outside, and I had never felt a well, part of it's coke, but like a well of joy, just simply joy. And I jumped up and down. I had tears in my eyes. And I just was like, I didn't realize how much I had wanted to do that my whole life, and had never really, considered that this would be something I would ever do, again. It felt like I was doing it once as a dare, but then I knew in that moment that it wasn't a dare, that like this was something that I needed to do more. And so then I ended up doing it in college. And, I was going to college to be a writer. I was, I wanted to write novels. and instead I did. I studied English, and which probably served me well as a writer, because I ended up writing for TV over the years too, and I think it helped my writing. But yeah, that was a turning point for sure.
That's a great story. It's just one of those, another example of something that just gets into your bloodstream the first time you do it. It's game over after that. Like, radio is kind of that way for me. And I do the podcasting thing now too, and that's a lot of fun. And I do like the video element, and I really dig the pre and post production side of broadcasting too. But I've talked to other people on radio that feel that way. I like, there's certain sports that I like to play that the first time you play them, even though you're not great necessarily, you're like, oh, this is a lot of fun. I want to do this. I want to work to get better at this. Is there anything outside of stand-up comedy that you feel that way about, that it's kind of in your bloodstream now and you plan on doing it for the rest of your life?
Something new. It's so funny. You get to a certain age and there's so little that's new that you get.
It's the whole idea of awe being this underrated emotion, but the older you get, the harder it is to experience awe because you're used to the world around you, right?
Yeah, I think, I feel like I've had my awe moments and my discovering moments, and now it's much more about distilling them, it's actually about not doing as much. It's about finding the things I really love and doing more of that. Like, I started playing golf since the pandemic. I started playing golf more with the same bunch of guys. We do a lot of gambling and laughing, and we have a Sunday volleyball game on the beach. I do Sunday morning yoga on the beach, and I've gotten much more into like rituals, and I think it's almost the opposite of what you're asking. Um, I read way more than I used to. I work out at the gym way more than I used to,
That's
and then
great.
I stopped going to coffee with people. You know, like, hey man, can I pick your brain? No, no, it's my brain. You don't get to pick it. You know, I don't even answer the phone. Like, I've become more insular. Like, in some ways, I've become more communal and social, but in other ways, I've trimmed. You know, I don't go to a lot of parties. I go to get-togethers, but I don't go to parties. Like, I rarely go to Hollywood to like. I'll get invited to a premiere or a rap party for a show, and I just realized that I'm gonna come home depleted. I'm gonna see somebody whose name I don't remember, and it's gonna make me feel like a piece of shit. And so I think it's much more about streamlining at this point. You know, me and my wife, now that our kids are older, we've kind of rediscovered our romance and our dating life. And I've been in the zone with her for a while, and it feels really good.
That's great to hear because couples who have kids, of course, the kids, I won't say they become a distraction, but you have to prioritize. And sometimes the relationship suffers as a result. So to hear that you are, I forget if you're pure empty nesters now, but you're essentially there. Your kids are all grown up, that y'all have been able to rekindle that romantic flame. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's great. She's very silly and she's very patient and she's very non-judgmental. It's like every time I introduce her to somebody new, I kind of just stand back and I watch, and I'm filled with pride that that's my wife. Look at her just listening. She's never nervous about talking to somebody new, and they pick up on her energy and they just immediately just love her. She's a doula. She's a birth doula. And like she's just like, you know, her mom was a mental health nurse, and she's just like she grew up in New York City, so she's kind of tough and a little bit, you know, she gets it. But there's a part of her that's very pure that I never get tired of.
I would assume most doulas are some version of that because you're there at the inception of life, and that really puts everything in perspective.
Yeah, right.
So you've mentioned getting deeper into reading. You mentioned an interest in novels in college. Do you have a favorite book?
Yeah, I there's a woman named Sally Rooney. She's an Irish author,
Okay.
and she wrote a book called Normal People that's amazing. And she just really does very layered characters,
Hmm.
and she really sits with a scene very deeply, and it's very psychological. It's really beautiful. I just read another book by her, and it's a weird name, and I can't remember it right now. But then I'm also going back, like we're cleaning out the back, and we're going through like my kids' books from high school, and I'm starting to reread the classics because I felt like I had to read them in high school, and I just reread The Great Gatsby and Moby Dick and East of Eden, and I'm going back and I'm reading the classics.
Did you actually like Moby Dick this time around?
Oh my
Because
God, I love Moby Dick.
okay, so what is enjoyable about Moby Dick? I tried to read it back in the day. My 10-year-old daughter, who is a voracious reader, she's like, Mom, Dad, I'm going to read Moby Dick. We're like, good luck with that. She gets 100 pages in. She's like, I can't do it. So what is it that was so enjoyable about Moby Dick this time
I
around?
just feel like I love when a book takes me into a world I had nothing about.
Hmm.
And this is a time and a place where men were so fucking rugged, and they were so this world of, you know, sort of like pirate type characters meeting, you know, talking about biblical themes about this whale and obsession, and just the minutia of, you know, like a Nantucket village during the whaling times. I love to be taken somewhere I've never been before.
Getting back to normal people, did reading that book and appreciating the layers of that, did that affect how you go about either writing scripts or even writing the bits that you're doing on stage this weekend at Comedy Mothership and elsewhere?
Well, I find that like I'll get in tune with the rhythm of a writer more so than the themes. Like if I read somebody like, like I like poetry a lot, and if I read like Allen Ginsberg, I will start to write more flourishy prose. Like I have this whole routine now that I wrote about how people are bashing California all around the country, and I go, when I'm in Dayton, Ohio, and I say I'm from California, and they boo, and I'm like, boo, you're fucking Dayton, Ohio. You don't get to boo California. And then I have a very kind of flourishy run about what a Sunday is like in Venice Beach, and the drum circle and the homeless guy who can weave in front of you, and the bikes that ride around Sunday nights on Venice Beach and they have neon tapestry hanging off the back, and there's a pit bull with a handkerchief around his neck, and he knows how to hang, and I just, it's like a very long 6-minute run that I'm not used to writing that way, and it really connects to people. It connects to people in LA clubs. I have to see how it's going to do in Austin, Texas this week, but I'm going to kind of dig. I might even open with it because it's kind of a fuck you to Austin for hating LA so much.
Well, look, Austin is half California now,
yeah, right,
in terms of the people that have moved here. So
right.
you may get some applause breaks for that joke if you use it as the opener or wherever you use it throughout your set.
Yeah, it'll be half and half, which is about right. That's about where I want to be with a crowd.
Well, and everybody that says that whatever city is going to die, LA, New York, Chicago, like these cities have their ebbs and flows. They go through their good and their bad, but at the end of the day, I mean, even Detroit is having the sun right now, apparently. And everybody left Detroit and Cleveland and cities like that for dead 5 years ago. So you just have to be willing to ride the wave if you live in one of those places.
I was just in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and it's amazing. It's like they got this Bob Dylan museum there now and a Woody Guthrie museum, and they've got Leon Russell's recording studio. You can take tours of that. This place is like the Stones recorded, and it's really famous. It's called The Church. And then they've got the Tulsa Uprising Museum, but it's also got like they revamped the whole side. It's like it's on a river, and there's this whole recreation kind of peninsula that they developed, and they've got city bikes you can rent, and they've got gastro pubs and great restaurants. And I kind of feel like if I was a young person, that's the kind of city I'd move to. You can rent an apartment for $800 a month and, not be overrun by people.
You're saying Tulsa, Oklahoma is the type of place that you would want to live?
Not now, but when I was younger, I would. And we flew there because Bruce Springsteen was coming through LA, and the tickets were like $900 each. And then my buddy, Mike Gibbons, who I do my podcast with, calls me and he's like, hey man, Springsteen tickets are $129 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Dylan Museum is there. The Woody Guthrie Museum. He goes, let's just go. So we rented a big Airbnb, and all our friends from around the country flew in. We had like 8 or 9 people. And they have an arena there where our tickets were like up in the nosebleeds, and we just walked. They don't give a shit in Oklahoma. We just walked straight down to the floor. We were in like the 5th row, standing there dancing. Bruce came down and was high-fiving people in front of us, and It was amazing.
Is there something interesting you learned about Bob Dylan at the Dylan Museum?
Yeah, I didn't realize how much of a visual artist he was. They had a lot of his drawings, and they were actually really good. And I get what else? There was a lot of stuff about his relationship with Joan Baez and how conflicted it was. And I didn't realize they toured together as much as they did. And also they talked about the rivalry with Joni Mitchell and how she always felt like she was as talented as Dylan, but he got more famous because he was a man, which is a pretty good argument for that. She's getting her due now, but I would say in that like the 90s and so there was not a lot of love for her. Hold on one second. I got to take this. Hello.
Hey, Greg, Larry Charles.
Hey, Larry.
I'm out
Oh, shit. I thought we were meeting at noon. Oh, your agent told me it was at noon on Tuesday. No, on Wednesday.
The email says 11 o'clock. I'm a little early.
Okay, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there in 15 minutes.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Is anybody there now inside?
Just walk right up.
Okay, great.
Yeah, the guy up there, his name is Paul.
Okay, great. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Larry.
Is that Larry Charles?
That's Larry Charles. Yeah, so I got to run. He's there early, and I got to go.
He is the great Greg Fitzsimmons. Check him out at the Comedy Mothership this weekend, Friday through Sunday. Also, check out his latest special, You Know Me, on YouTube. Greg, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for the time. Enjoy your conversation with Larry Charles here in a little bit.
All right. Thanks, buddy.